There's a kind of strength that never raises its voice, a kind of power that does not force, but bends the world with its presence, a kind of warrior who wins, not by striking first, but by mastering the battlefield within. In the mountains of the eastern provinces, where the wind speaks in old tongues and the pines bow like monks in eternal prayer, travelers tell stories of a man called the Silent Warrior. No armor, no banners, only a calm that disarms the violent and a discipline that breaks the spine of chaos. They say he defeats enemies without fighting. They say his silence carries more authority than a king's decree. They say he walks the path of no opposition, an ancient system of inner mastery forgotten by most, feared by the rest. But he was not always this way. Before the silence, there was noise. Before the wisdom, there was ego. Before the presence, there was fear. This is a story of how a man unlearned the world to rediscover his spirit, how he transformed from a restless fighter into a warrior of stillness, and how true victory often comes not through domination, but through a deeper understanding of self, suffering, and the nature of power. For the one who conquers his own mind leaves no battlefield unconquered. Chapter 1: The Noise Inside the Blade. The sun had barely risen, yet the training grounds already trembled with the clang of steel. A thin mist clung to the earth, curling around Renji's ankles as he paced across the packed dirt floor. His breath was sharp, restless, his grip on the sword hilt too tight. Even before the duel began, he was already fighting, not his opponent, but the storm inside his chest. Renji was known through the provinces as the young blade with the hungry spirit. Fast, precise, relentless, but also volatile. His victories came at a price measured not in scars, but in sleepless nights and the constant thrum of invisible pressure. Today's opponent was a veteran named Sora. Broad-shouldered, calm, the kind of man whose presence settled the air around him. When Sora stepped onto the grounds, he moved not with force, but with certainty. No wasted steps, no fluctuations of energy, just an anchored simplicity. Renji hated that kind of calm because he couldn't understand it. Spectators gathered in a ring, murmuring. Some expected a quick match, Renji's speed overwhelming the older fighter. Others whispered about Sora's silent reputation, a man who had once ended a conflict by simply standing unmoved, causing the aggressor to drop his sword in shame. The judge raised his hand. Renji inhaled. The noise inside him was already rising. What if you lose? You must win. Everyone's watching. He looks so calm. Why are you shaking? You're not good enough unless you dominate him. This is the noise warriors rarely admit to, the psychological turbulence modern science would call the threat response, where cortisol spikes and the amygdala seizes control. But Renji only knew it as the pressure that lived in his skull. The signal dropped. Renji exploded forward. Steel flashed. Dust rose. The crowd gasped. The duel became a blur of cuts and counters, Renji striking with desperation, disguised as aggression. Sora received each blow with minimal movement, like a boulder meeting waves. His breath steady, eyes half-lidded, silent. The calm was unbearable. Renji swung harder. When their blades locked face to face, Renji saw it, that quiet, unshakable presence, and something inside him stalled. His arms trembled, his breath faltered. For a split second, a silence opened inside him, and in that silence he saw his fear laid bare. Not fear of Sora, fear of himself. Fear that without violence, without achievement, without the roar of victory, he was nothing. He froze. Sora almost struck him down then, but paused. He simply stepped aside and tapped Renji's wrist, a gesture almost soft. It was enough. Renji stumbled, regained footing, and in a burst of pride he slashed upward, barely grazing Sora's side. The judge called it. Renji had technically won, but he felt hollow. Sora bowed, a bow with depth and sincerity. Renji bowed back, but his eyes were unfocused. The cheers from the crowd washed over him like distant thunder. Victory felt like defeat wrapped in noise. After the crowd dispersed, Renji sat alone on the empty field, his sword across his knees. The mist had lifted. The silence of the morning had returned, a silence that mocked him. Why did his calm make me weak? Why did my strength feel false? Renji's mind replayed the duel again and again, not the movements, not the technique, but Sora's face, serene, unthreatened, a man who didn't need victory to validate his existence. Renji realized something unsettling. He had mastered the blade, but not himself, and that truth stung more than any wound. As the sun climbed higher, its light revealed what Renji had long avoided. The noise was not an enemy to be cut down. It was a cry from the depths of an unexamined spirit. He could no longer ignore it. Chapter 2: The Mountain of Stillness. The road to the high mountain monastery was not marked on any map. It wound through forests that whispered in old dialects, across stone bridges worn smooth by centuries of pilgrim footsteps, and along cliffs where the wind carved prayers into the air. Renji walked alone, sword at his side, though it felt heavier than ever, not because of its weight, but because of the truth he carried with it. Strength without inner mastery is merely sharpened chaos. He did not travel for glory, nor for another technique to add to his repertoire. He traveled because the silence he witnessed in Sora had pierced him deeper than any blade. That calm had exposed his own storm. And once a man sees the truth of his unrest, he can never fully return to ignorance. As Renji climbed, the world grew quieter. Birdsong softened, wind slowed. Even his thoughts felt muffled, as though the mountain itself demanded silence as an offering. At the foot of the final ascent lay a wooden gate, unguarded, draped in moss. An inscription was etched into the beam overhead. Only the emptied cup may be filled. Renji exhaled. His pride resisted the meaning, but his spirit leaned toward it. Beyond the gate, a courtyard opened. A few monks moved with deliberate slowness, sweeping, tending to the garden, carrying water. Their actions were simple, but shaped with an attentiveness that made even the smallest gesture feel sacred. Renji expected warriors in formation, training in secret arts, honing hidden techniques. Instead, he found tranquility sculpted into daily life. A man emerged from the main hall, elderly but not weakened, his back straight as a mountain ridge, his steps so light they barely disturbed the dust. His presence did not command the space, it completed it. This was Master Kayan. Renji bowed deeply. "I've traveled to learn the Tao of Power." Master Kayan's gaze was gentle, yet it pierced straight through Renji's practiced composure. "The Tao of Power," the master said quietly, "is not learned through travel, but through stillness." Renji hesitated. "Please train me. I want the strength I saw in the calm warrior." Kayan studied him for a long moment. "Strength," he echoed, "or escape?" The words struck Renji like cold water. Kayan motioned for him to follow. They walked through the monastery grounds. Renji observed how every monk breathed in sync with their movements, as if each action was choreographed with the invisible rhythm of the earth. Kayan stopped at a stone well and placed a wooden bucket in Renji's hands. "You will fetch water." Renji blinked. "Master, I came to train." "And you are trainin'," Kayan replied, already turning away. Renji felt frustration coil inside him, the same restlessness that had always pushed him into impulsive action, but he swallowed it. If silence and stillness held the power he sought, then this too must have meaning. He carried the bucket down the slope, filled it, and returned. Kayan nodded once. Again. Renji repeated the task, and again, until his arms trembled and sweat soaked through his clothes. Between each trip, Kayan would offer a fragment of wisdom, short, sharp, and enigmatic. Discipline is not intensity, it is consistency. Presence is the blade sharper than steel. Most battles begin with the noise in the mind. Renji didn't fully understand, but he listened. Something within him softened, like iron, slowly loosened its brittleness in the forge. As the day faded, Kayan approached him one final time. "You believe power is gained by adding more," he said, "but true power begins with removing what weakens you." Renji felt those words settle deep, perhaps deeper than any sword strike he had ever received. Chapter 3: Facing the Mirror Without Mercy. Night on the mountain was different from night in the world below. Down there, darkness felt like an absence, a simple curtain of shadow. Up here, it felt alive, a presence that listened, watched, and revealed. Renji sat in the meditation hall alone. A single candle flickered in front of him, its flame swaying like a quiet heartbeat. The air was cold enough to sting the lungs, yet strangely cleansing. Master Kayan had given him no instructions for the evening, only a single sentence: "Sit with yourself. Do not move. Do not escape." Renji thought it would be simple. He was wrong. Within minutes, his knees burned. His spine protested. His breath felt too loud, too forceful. But the physical pain was nothing compared to what came next. The rising tide of thoughts he had avoided all his life. At first, they were small and familiar. "You must improve. You didn't train enough. You're wasting time." But soon, deeper voices surfaced, the ones he never allowed himself to hear. "You're afraid they will forget you. You fight because you don't know who you are without the blade. You are terrified of being ordinary. You are terrified of being seen. You are terrified of being nothing." His breath caught. The candle flame reflected in his eyes, and in that reflection, Renji saw himself stripped of every title, every victory, every illusion. The facade he wore in battles, the confident smirk, the proud stance, the hungry fire, all of it felt fragile, like thin glass trying to mask a hollow frame. Minutes stretched into what felt like hours. The room felt smaller. The silence grew sharper. In the absence of motion, Renji met the person he had spent years outrunning. His pulse quickened, his jaw clenched. He wanted to stand, pace, swing his sword. Anything but sit here and witness the truths rising from the depths of his own mind. Yet Kayan's words echoed. "The enemy you refuse to meet becomes the enemy that controls you." So he stayed. He stayed when his chest tightened with shame. He stayed when old memories surfaced, the harsh training, the childhood expectations, the first time he equated worth with victory. He stayed when he saw how much of his life was driven not by conviction, but by fear disguised as ambition. Eventually, his breath softened. The storm began to settle. In modern psychological language, Renji was experiencing cognitive exposure, the act of facing internal fears until they lose their power. But what Renji felt was more primal, more ancient. It was the spirit unmasking itself, the ego losing its grip. Sometime in the stillness, he whispered to himself, "I am afraid." And instead of collapsing, something inside him opened, not weakness, not defeat, but honesty. The first true honesty he had tasted in years. The candle flame flickered and steadied, as if nodding in approval. For the first time, Renji didn't try to silence the fear. He listened to it. He breathed with it. He allowed it to exist without letting it command him. When Master Kayan finally entered hours later, Renji's face was streaked with dried tears. He hadn't noticed falling, but there was a new softness in his eyes, a quiet clarity that had never been there before. Kayan looked at him and said only, "Good. You have finally met your true opponent." Renji bowed his head. For the first time in his life, he felt progress without movement. Chapter 4: The Path of No Opposition. Dawn crept gently over the mountain, painting the courtyard in silver blue light. Renji stepped outside, his breath curling into the cool morning air. Something inside him had changed since the night of facing himself. The inner turbulence had not vanished, but it no longer controlled him. It was like standing beside a river instead of being swept away by it. Master Kayan was already waiting. He stood beneath a cherry tree whose branches barely stirred, as if even the wind respected his calm. Renji approached, bowed, and waited for instruction. The master did not speak immediately. He simply observed Renji with eyes that saw beyond posture, beyond muscle, beyond technique. At last, Kayan said, "You have faced your fear. Now you must learn how not to oppose it." Renji frowned slightly. "Not oppose it? Isn't that how battles are won?" Kayan shook his head. "Battles are won before they begin, when one refuses to provide resistance for the enemy to push against." He gestured for Renji to follow. They walked to the training grounds where two monks were practicing slow circular movements. Their arms flowed like water, redirecting invisible currents, never meeting force with force. Kayan motioned toward them. This is the ancient system of Wu Wei, the art of effortless action, not inaction, not passivity, but meeting life without the tension that creates unnecessary conflict. Renji watched closely. Each monk stepped in harmony with the other, their bodies spiraling, deflecting, absorbing. Nothing harsh, nothing rigid, and yet Renji could feel a strange power radiating from the softness. Kayan handed Renji a wooden staff. "Attack me." Renji hesitated. He didn't want to disrespect the master, but Kayan nodded firmly. "Come." Renji lunged. In the blink of an eye, Kayan's body shifted, barely, and Renji felt his own momentum slip off the master as though striking fog. No collision, no clash. Renji stumbled forward, unable to understand how his power had simply dissolved. Again. Renji swung with precision, again. His strike was redirected by what felt like nothing, not blocked, not stopped, just absorbed and led away. Frustration flared inside Renji, but he restrained it. He adjusted, tested angles, varied speed. Every time Kayan's response was the same effortless neutralization, like a leaf guiding wind instead of resisting it. Kayan finally raised a hand. "You fight like a man trying to prove his existence," he said calmly, "and thus you always create resistance. Resistance feeds conflict. Release the need to dominate, and conflict weakens before contact." Renji lowered his staff, chest rising and falling with controlled breath. His mind raced to understand what his body could not. Kayan continued, "In modern science, this is the principle of energy redirection. Force can be neutralized by altering its pathway, not meeting it head on. And in ancient wisdom, this is the way of the Tao: water over rock, wind over flame, the quiet force that shapes mountains." Renji listened, fascinated. "So, the calm I saw in the man I fought was not calm," Kayan finished. "It was mastery. He gave you no surface to strike. Your aggression had nothing to grip." Renji felt something inside him shift. The duel, the noise, the paralysis. It was suddenly clear. He had always met force with greater force. He had always believed overwhelming meant conquering. But the man who needed to overwhelm had already lost. Kayan stepped closer. To walk the path of no opposition, you must learn to let energy pass through you, not into you. Renji closed his eyes, absorbing every word. The mountain was silent. The wind paused. A new kind of strength, one he had never trained for, began to awaken within him. Chapter 5: The Warrior Who No Longer Needs the Blade. The road back to the world below felt different this time. When Renji had first climbed the mountain, every step had been driven by turbulence. His pulse quick, his mind loud, his ambition clawing at the edges of his spirit. Now, as he descended through the whispering pines and stone paths draped in morning shade, he felt the quiet certainty of a man who no longer needed the world to validate him. The sword at his side was the same, but the one who carried it was not. Renji reached the valley by midday. Life moved fast down here. Merchants shouting, carts rolling, children dashing between stalls, the pulse of human desire beating openly in the streets. Yet within it all, Renji walked, as if untouched by the current. His breath steady, his step grounded. He was still even while moving. It did not take long for word of his return to spread. Travelers recognized the swordsman with the lean frame and calm posture, but they sensed something different. The old fire in his eyes had shifted into a quiet flame that did not flicker, a flame that consumed nothing but illuminated everything. By evening, a messenger approached him in the tea house where he sat alone. "Renji," the young man said, bowing nervously. "A bandit lord named Jiru has heard of your return. He demands you face him at dawn tomorrow. He says he wants to test the strength of the silent warrior he's heard about." Renji sipped his tea. His pulse did not rise. His breath did not change. He simply nodded. The messenger swallowed. "Will you fight him?" Renji placed the cup down gently. "I will meet him." That night, Renji slept with ease, not the fragile sleep of a man conserving energy for battle, but a deep, unburdened rest of someone who has already confronted his real enemies. At dawn, the sky stretched open like a pale canvas brushed with orange and gold. Renji walked to the abandoned field where Jiru awaited him. The bandit lord stood tall, armored in rough steel, muscles bulging beneath scarred skin. He grinned when he saw Renji approach. "You come without armor, without allies?" Jiru barked. "Do you think yourself invincible?" Renji shook his head. "No, I simply do not fear you." Jiru's grin faltered. Renji continued walking, slow, steady, each step echoing across the silent field. Birds perched along the fence line, watching as if they sensed something sacred in the air. Jiru raised his massive blade. "Draw your weapon, Renji." Renji did not reach for his sword. Instead, he inhaled, a long, silent breath that steadied the world around him. His presence expanded, filling the space with a calm so complete that even the wind stilled. His body centered, his mind clear, his spirit anchored in a depth Jiru could not comprehend. This was the path of no opposition in its purest form. Not in a monastery, not in training, but here, where conflict sought to rise. Jiru roared and charged. Renji did not move, not yet. He let the energy come, feeling the ripples of aggression approaching like a wave. He remained fluid, unresisting, a vessel ready to redirect instead of collide. His eyes softened, observing every micro-movement, the tightening of Jiru's jaw, the shift of his hips, the swing that carried more ego than precision. The moment the strike descended, Renji stepped to the side, small, effortless, like a leaf shifting with the wind. Jiru's sword cut nothing but air. His own momentum betrayed him. Renji touched his wrist, gently, almost compassionately, and guided him downward. Jiru crashed to one knee, breath heaving, face flushed with disbelief. Renji's voice was calm. "You are not defeated by me. You are defeated by the weight you carry inside." And in that moment, something inside Jiru cracked, not bone but pride. He lowered his blade, defeated without a single strike, without opposition, without the need for violence. The birds sang again. The wind resumed its gentle path, and Renji stood in the center of the field, a warrior who no longer needed to fight to prove anything to anyone, not even himself.